It's Tuesday, and that is Berlin. It's 4 p.m. Central European summertime, and we are here at the 14th IAA Symposium on Small Satellites for Earth Systems Observation here in the Ludwig Erhard House in Berlin. And it is Europe Day. Isn't that nice? We're delighted to welcome you to another episode of our Space Café, 33 minutes, and today with Professor Enrico Stoll and Dr. Jens Berdermann. Berdermann is correct. It's correct. Yeah, it's an error. About space weather and about the symposium we are on these days. As always, we truly value your participation and ongoing feedback. We are committed to learning from your input and continuously improving our webinars to make them more engaging and informative for you. We also like to thank your institute, the DLR Institute for Solar-Terrestrial Physics in Neustrelitz, for their support. I'm Thorsten, the publisher of SpaceWatch.Global, and we are a Europe-based online platform for information in and about space and new space activities in a geopolitical context. I would like to thank all our private and corporate supporters in 2023 that showed their continuous commitment to keep our independent journalism alive. We really appreciate that. And I know many of you are already familiar with our website, the bi-weekly and daily newsletters, and the Space Café podcast, the Space Café radios, and the Space Economy Insights. Fresh episodes are online now, so grab them. Our fan shop is always open for you because it's on our website, just a click away to become a real space watcher and show your commitment to us, to the world. If you've missed any of our previous web talks, we have a massive archive available on our website in the event section, and you can also find us on YouTube. So, my guests will go with us on a 33-minute journey about the beauty and the dangerous aspects of space. And I'm delighted to welcome, as mentioned before, Professor Dr. Engineer Enrico Stoll, Space Café returner and the chair of the Space Technology sector?
Well,
department.
The chair itself.
Oh, chair. It's just chair. Just chair.
So I'm holding the chair. Yeah.
Okay.
At TU Berlin.
At TU Berlin,
yeah.
Of course. Well, it's what is just a Steinwurf, a stone's throw away from us here. Welcome. And Dr. Jens Berdermann, the acting director and department head of the DLR Institute for Solar-Terrestrial Physics in Neustrelitz, what is just 1.5 hours north of Berlin. Welcome also, Jens, to the show. The last weeks we saw in the news polar lights in the north of Berlin. Amazing pictures, something we just know from the high north, at least I know. Jens, can you help us to describe what are polar lights?
Okay, you know it already.
Yeah, I know.
Well, you can repeat it now.
Oh, that's a professor in you coming out, yeah.
Yeah, polar lights are a direct result of space weather. Space weather is mainly driven by the sun. It's radiation, but also solar wind. The solar wind are particle flow from the sun towards the Earth with about 400 up to 800 kilometers per second and can reach the Earth in 3 up to 4 days. And there it interacts with the Earth's atmosphere. And the particles go along the magnetic field lines of the Earth and then go to the polar region and interact with the atmosphere. And depending on the particle there, it creates different colors of light colors. Depending on oxygen or nitrogen, what is involved. And if you have a space weather event, strong solar storm, for instance, then the velocity of the particles is higher, and then it can be even interact more effective, and even in our mid-latitude region, as we have seen recently.
But it's not normal, isn't it? That we see it so far south?
No, that's not normal. That's depending on the activity of the space weather activity. So if you have a solar storm, coronal mass ejection, and causing a storm, then you have,
I mean,
more.
How did you make space weather your profession? I mean, we are all nerds. Okay, fair point. But I mean, that's super nerdy, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. It's
Or was
maybe
just
it is.
job available?
Maybe I started with a subject which is strongly related to space weather. So I've worked for a long time in the Institute for Communication of Navigation, DLR,
Okay.
and I worked on the ionosphere. And the ionosphere is strongly affected by space weather effects. Ionosphere is a charged layer in 50 up to 1,000 kilometer height, and it can have an impact on radio signals used in GNSS, also global navigation satellite systems, or also for communication.
Nice.
And if there's the disturbance in the ionosphere, then you can get problems with your services, and therefore disturbance can come from space weather effects, and this we have investigated. And since we become more and more important, and we looked more also in other effects, so the topic is grown. And so we have now the new institute, which was founded 2019.
I will come to the institute in a second.
Space weather.
Just want to loop in Enrico. Did you saw polar lights already, or?
Well, I haven't seen them in action.
It's on my bucket list.
Yeah,
so, I haven't seen it last week as well.
We can use the same bucket maybe, but I know that a couple of colleagues were usually doing antenna maintenance in the south or in the north, like Norway or down in Antarctica. They've seen them already, so it must be beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm talking with René Laufer now in Kiruna, and he shows all this picture and say, hey, yeah, we had another nice evening or night with polar lights. I say, yeah, nice, fine. Our was just dark or gray.
We have traffic lights here.
That's right. So now, tell us a bit more about the work of your institute. What does it contain?
The institute contains, it's a DLR Institute, so we do fundamental research, but it's also crucial for us to bring this into operations. So we have 3 departments. One department that is dealing with observations, ground-based observation. We build up own networks to monitor space weather. We use also space-based data, CubeSat data, small satellite data, which are crucial for really monitoring space weather and forecasting. And then we have a department of modeling, where you learn about the processes of space weather from the sun to the Earth. All the interaction processes, also in the atmosphere, is a very complex interaction, where we vertical coupling processes and so on. And then we have the third department, and this is for application oriented. We have a pre-operational service called IMPC, Ionosphere Monitoring and Prediction Center. Okay. And here we deliver data, space weather data, to ESA and also to the ICAO, the Civil Aviation Organization.
Okay. And I was wondering that DLR is creating such an institute. I thought there are dozens of them worldwide, and it's all set in this field, but it seems not. So what makes your work unique, and how many people work there?
Well, it's not dozens around the world, because I think the topic came up 20 years ago, and it's growing since then, because we have more and more infrastructure in space and on ground, and we know also more and more that we can be heavily hit by space weather events if it's a very strong event. So we have to prepare. And what is true, there are more countries internationally working together, because it doesn't stop on the border of our country. So we have to get the data also from the other countries to interact with the scientists and get products together. This is our institute is working since we started with the ionospheric research, and it's a very old institute. And the institute is not old, but the site is very old, over 100 years, starting with the radio wave propagation research. And since then, the ionosphere was a topic, because radio waves are reflected at the lower layers of the ionosphere. Yeah. And so it was continuously a topic, so it's also some history. And now in the modern satellite-based in the society, this information are crucial, and we need more and more of this observation capabilities, and also we need to improve the forecast, like the Weather Service has done with data assimilation of space and ground-based data, and really physical-based data assimilated models to really spatially and regionally exact forecasts for the Earth, but also for exploration.
Maybe.
So this is a topic.
Enrico, I read, I think last year, that a solar event took out over 30 Starlink satellites, if that's correct. What is the influence of space weather on your research on small satellites? Does it have a relevance, or when it occurs, then they fall off?
Well, it always has an influence. I mean, when we're building satellites, we all take into the consideration charged particles in the harsh space environment. So this is part of the designing process. And I think in the coming years, when there's more, maybe the space weather is getting harsher, our research also focuses some orbits outside the Earth orbit, so further away from LEO. Then where we're not shielded by the geomagnetic belt, so to speak, then it gets even more interesting or complicated to shield our satellites or to prepare them actually for those kind of events.
So, but I take from it, you can shield, you can prepare for these events, or just in relations?
There are some kind of precautions that you can take, like shielding, or you radiation harden your satellite parts, but then they're becoming more and more complicated, more cost intense. Of course, you can have redundancies in your satellite system. So if one of the electronics doesn't play as you were experienced or as you thought it to be, then you have to switch to the other side. So there are a couple of measures you can take, but of course you can't shield your entire satellite, otherwise it's too heavy, right? So and otherwise you have a big bulky piece of metal there.
Can I compare it with an EMP? In that, I mean, if I have an hardware, what is prepared, for an atomic impact or so, is that comparable?
I guess we would have to ask the guys from physics.
Yeah, both of you are invited, so it's not one after the other. So,
well, I think it's if you have a solar storm, you have a big plasma cloud with charged particles, and if they hit the satellite, can be internal, external charge. There could be bit flips in the software. There could be a lot of problems, different problems. You can have radiation, as mentioned, which is also a topic. I think it depends on the strength of the event, how much are affected and how strongly they are affected. So we have some historic events we can look at. We have one extreme event, but this happened in 1859. There was no space infrastructure and barely ground infrastructure. But even 1859 Carrington event, it hit the telegraph lines, and already the operation was disturbed, and some telegraph sites burned. It was already strongly affecting. But today you may imagine that just such an event could cause a lot of problems for satellites, power net, ground-based infrastructures, and so on.
As you said, for satellites, for example, bit flips you already mentioned, so you can lose some data, but there's a possibility that you're short-circuiting the system, so maybe one system ggets lost, right?
So it's then really a finite event. So if they're hit, that could happen, that hardware kaput.
Well, there exist papers that say that there could be up to 2 decades to get back to our infrastructure we have today, because a lot of satellites are damaged, and also ground-based infrastructures.
If I'm correct, and I'm happy to have you two experts here, space weather has with an impact. I mean, we have always space weather. Weather's always there, as we know, but with an impact that comes in cycles. How predictable it is, and how fast can I respond? I mean, the sun is far away, so I see it coming. And when you say 400 to 800 kilometers per second, it's at least on cosmic terms and predictable time. It's not, there.
Well, there are 2 questions in it. First one is on cycles. So there are a lot of cycles. So we have the most important cycle is maybe the 11-year cycle with the solar max, where you have a lot of sunspots and causing also magnetic field changes, which cause coronal mass ejection, solar flares, and things like that. So we are heading to solar max, which will be 2025. this
And
cycle.
it's this year. I can't say, hey, 21st of March.
Well, no, it's heading up. It's becoming more and more active. Maybe you have more events, more problems on navigation and communication and things like that. And you can have a severe event, but you can also have a severe event during solar min. So that's it's statistically less.
Okay.
Another interesting effect is that the atmosphere is getting more dense. It's getting warmer and warmer, which means that we have more particles, molecules, remaining molecules in the atmosphere that are hitting the satellite, and which means that they're dropping even further than they're supposed to be. For example, let's assume a satellite of the size of a washing machine, maybe 100 kilogram, and in a solar min event was dropping. I knew some, I operated some, they were dropping by a meter a day, but in a solar max event, they were dropping by 30 meters a day. So this has some kind of impact on operations too. Not the primary one, but maybe on a secondary.
Wait. I have to digest it. I mean, a satellite in a LEO orbit, 400 kilometers, 200 something kilometers or so, is dropping faster when there is solar min?
Max. And there's solar max, yes.
Because there are more particles in the atmosphere, and
it's
you
kind
have
of
more drag.
more energy. The particles are moving faster, and there's more particles hitting the satellite. So the residual atmosphere, like the stuff which is already there, right? But it's just moving faster.
I like this Space Café already because I'm learning something today. So that's pretty cool. Let's talk about.
Yeah, there was the second question.
Sorry.
Prediction. And well, it depends on the event you have. If you have a solar flare, this is the speed of light, 8 minutes. Then you have the effects in the ionosphere. It caused some troubles for some services, but will not be the really big event which you hear in the media. But solar storm, strong solar storm, can have a strong impact, and this you can see at L1 position. It's a Lagrange position between Earth and Sun, and 1.5 million kilometers away from the Earth. And if you measure it here, you have still only half up to 1 hour time until the storm interacts with the Earth's atmosphere. So because you're looking direct to the Sun. You might use other satellites to see the event when it started at the Sun, but then you cannot really follow because you're looking directly. And ESA is planning an L5 mission where you can look from L5 Lagrange point from the side, and you see already the sunspots, the complexity, so you can give an first warning maybe, and then you see also the propagation of the solar wind from the side, so you can make much better modeling.
That's the popcorn seat then, So Okay. Let's talk about the impact here on Earth again. How is the effect on terrestrial infrastructure, power grids, gas pipelines, or broadcast services, broadcast frequencies? Is that all affected? I mean, power line, I could envision a long infrastructure, what can collect a lot of energy and particles. So, but you're the experts.
Yeah, you're doing such space resonance solar storm, and then geomagnetic storm. There might be geomagnetic induced currents on long lines, which can affect transformators, and also pipelines and things like this, or what is and it's depending on the lines and the underground and the space weather events. So you have to you have to merge more information to really say, okay, there might be a problem or not. There's more investigation, especially for Germany, necessary, I would say. Other countries which are more in polar regions, they are much more affected, and they already have studies and look at such events.
We have data from the operators, of the networks already, where they say it has an effect, or it's too much energy, we had to switch it off, or so, things like that. I mean, burning transformator is something what is finite.
It depends on the country, and Germany luckily is again in a good situation for moderate or strong storms. It's in the mid latitude. It's not so strongly affected. In the case of extreme event, Germany would be also strongly affected. But it's not yet. We have no data from our power networks, but it's on our wish list, and we like to look into it and see if this could be a problem. But as I said, so Germany is it's a lucky situation. It's not so often, and you need really a strong event to be affected.
What can terrestrial infrastructure learn from space in terms of protection? I mean, aluhet, or I mean, how can I protect an country power grid?
Well, you only need to know which region is most affected by that. You need to know if the inductivity of the underground and the lines, your transformator you use. This you have to know, and then you can, because it's a storm coming, so you have some time to react, especially if you can forecast it. If there's a really strong storm, fast storm, you have 1 day.
Okay.
It's still enough time for the network providers to switch down some regions, and then it's not affected. But you will only do it if you really know you will be hit and you will be affected.
I mean, switching off the power grid means that we don't have electricity, that we don't have internet, and so on and so forth.
But it's not disturbed. It's not destroyed.
No, destroyed.
Disturbed is.
What can we learn from your research? I mean, you mentioned before you can harden satellites, you can protect them, you can shield them, all of the measures on Earth.
Well, I guess most of the operators from such plants, they know it already, I guess, because I'm not an expert there, but I guess it's very, very similar to hardened stuff or to have maybe redundancy. But in the worst case, as Jens already said, maybe you have to switch it off for a certain amount of time in order to be capable of operating later again, right? So I'm not sure whether there is a knowledge transfer actually from space to Earth, but would maybe be interesting to have a look at this.
No, I don't want to make any jokes. That's about the Berlin bureaucracy that can be switched off and nobody makes an impact. No, don't want to go there. Let's stay on the focus here. How is the topic generally researched in the academic community? Or is it a global work? So how much do you know about that? I know it's not your field of expertise.
Well, this is actually, from our colleagues, from the physicists. This is what they're doing, but it has an impact on our satellite, of course. And it's an interesting research position or an interesting research field. But by the way, we were communicating to each other, or our institutes have communicated to each other in the past, and we were actually trying to figure out how we can set up such a mission with the local capacities we were having, and what kind of satellites we would have to bring into space in order to increase our capabilities of forecasting that way.
Is there a global network on space weather that exchange data freely, or are there particular countries, institutes that hold their cards quite close to their chest, as we see it in many areas in the space sector?
Well, there are networks also from the research community, of course. Also WMO is looking in that topic because it affects technologies. ICAO is also, there's also a network of scientists supporting that, and also there are other networks.
When you say ICAO, it means it has we didn't spoke about it, but then it has an impact on aircrafts in the flight as well, or?
Well, it could have an impact on navigation and communication. And as we know, radiation, it's always a topic also to protect passengers. So, And this is also can be stronger during space weather events, solar events. And you usually have the background radiation from the cosmics. And if you have a solar energetic particle event, you can also have a little more radiation dose, and so you have to take care and to observe and to monitor to be.
So next cross-Atlantic flight over the poles, when you see in our polar lights, then just only half of you can smile and enjoy it, and the other ones should be scared. But the flight is okay. Okay, good. Question to both of you: if we go to the moon, if we travel long distance to space. I mean, how can we leverage the risk? Because it seems to be important. I mean, if we have a human, I mean, we spoke about satellites.
Yeah.
We didn't spoke about human missions to Moon, to Mars, half a year or whatever, 9 months to Mars. Is there a chance to avoid this kind of effects? I mean, there's not a pause of these events because it's an ongoing process, obviously.
Well, you have an extended exposure to such kind of particles, of course, and you have to take measures, right? There it is probably shielding because redundancy, you just take another astronaut, isn't the best solution.
Because they're both.
Yeah, maybe, but it's the same thing. If we want to have a permanent outpost on the moon, we have to take this into consideration. We have to shield all of the habitats for like make the walls very thick. Use maybe 3 meters of regolith, which is there, the grayish powder there, something like this. So I have to take this into consideration, definitely.
Yeah, and Moon does not have the magnetic field, the atmosphere, all the stuff that helps us here.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So exploration is the space weather environment is in our whole planetary system, and you have to protect for that. And especially Moon is still very dangerous. So if there's a space weather event, but you can manage. I don't know, in case of Mars, this is a really long time. And if you have a flying there and space weather event, it could be dangerous for the astronauts.
Are the colleagues from the human spaceflight departments of the agencies or even the private companies that are in that area right now coming to you and knocking on your door and say, hey, can you help us? Can you give us some more input? Or is that known or knowledge?
Well, maybe not here. I know from the US, the Space Weather Prediction Center, that they have a contact with their private industry, and SpaceX had a problem with the satellites, so they're now a little bit more aware of space weather and are in contact with their Space Weather Prediction Center in US. And I think if our space industry involves more, and then I think they will also need this information.
And there is a branch of space medicine, so there is doctors who are focusing on space, right? So
yeah, we just had this Mara experiment around the moon, and we spoke with Dr. Berger, Thomas Berger, in Colorado Springs, and learned a lot. So I mean, I know we say we do it for you, dear audience, but at the end we do it for us because we want to learn all of that. Is 100% protection possible, or is it naive to ask?
I don't know in which region you have 100% protection possible. It's
not. I mean, even a switched off satellite can be affected.
I think the main important thing is to be aware of things, so to know that something is coming. Then you can already react. And in case of you have to make more research, fundamental research, to know what's happening if you have an extreme event like the current event. So you need to know that which infrastructures are in danger.
And I think it's always a trade-off in how far all of those measures are impeding your mission. I mean, of course, you could use a big piece of metal and shield all of the astronauts, but then you can't get it into space anymore. So you have to weigh the pros and the cons first.
Not to say that you can't see anything, but that's another thing. Is this topic covered at this conference or in this community, or is it?
That's more in the direction of manned space flight. We are only So here, I would wonder if somebody has.
I've seen for the technology infrastructure, I've seen some radiation testing and things like that.
Because the Institute is one of the main sponsors of this conference here, or organizers of the conference.
Yeah, I thought for the manned space flight and radiation, but radiation, yes. We saw yesterday 2 interesting presentations from your institute, from the ESA. So yeah, that's definitely covered.
So that's a win-win situation. So we need the satellites to know more of the space weather, to observation, get data, and with this information we can help maybe to protect and inform about space weather, severe space weather conditions.
Okay. As we also mentioned that we want to talk a bit about the conference, can you give us your first review feedback from the conference after 1.5 days. So this new, I mean, it's obviously a new location. You pointed out yesterday. Seems to be accepted. Everyone found it now, finally. But pure from the content, or is it same as usual for you? I mean, it's the 14th edition, because that's why it's called 14th.
Right. So I attended a couple of times. Now I've kind of changed positions. I'm now on the board as well. And to be honest, I like it here. So we have all these nice exhibitors here who get very, very fastly into contact with all of the participants, because they can just exchange ideas. And it's a great location here. We have Berlin partner aboard who are actually helping us in setting everything up. So I haven't heard anybody complaining yet.
And thanks to Berlin partners, that we can also use their booth here for this recording. So Jens, your feedback from the conference.
For me, it's the first time here. It's not our main subject, but it's becoming more and more important for us. So as I already mentioned, small satellite missions to space weather observations. I find it really very interesting. So each talk I have seen is, it's for me, it's new parts, but I already can think, okay, well, that might be affected, and here they can contribute or help us maybe with data, and it's really, really interesting, and it's also a lot of people here. It's it's first time. It's not my community, so I learn a lot of new people, and it's a pleasure.
But that's good point. We would like to try to open up to the scientific communities. I mean, we're the engineers, we're building stuff, but we need somebody who uses it, who says, well, I have this interesting instrument, I would like to measure this, and I would like to measure that, and we're saying, well, we can do it, but we have to work together. And if there's colleagues coming from other communities, everybody's welcome.
But I always recognize that the presentations are here on a very high or detailed technical level or academic level, not even technical, but academic level. So it is not the usual BS you get in many conferences on stage when people have 3 minutes of FaceTime to tell you, hey, we have the greatest, finest stuff here. So, and that's it. But it's really on the details, on very academic, and I think that's interesting.
This conference is on the latest advancement. So what's happening there, what is possible, and then that's the point where we can actually get into talks with each other, and they can say, maybe I have an idea for your satellite, or he says I have a nice possibility of measuring this and that.
Did I forget anything to ask about space weather? What burns on your heart and what you want to tell the world about?
I think you cannot.
I mean, open positions in Neustrelitz or whatever.
Oh, well, you asked for our institute. So we have now 45 scientists. So, and we are built up after 3 years. Now we have the full, all people are there, scientists, and that's great. So it was during Corona pandemic situation, and we really got very good scientists, and we cover very interesting topics. And it's I think the topic is great, and there's hopefully a very good future for us. And so I hope that we also have, as a Space Institute, a small satellite mission in future.
That would be great.
Cool. I mean, if we brought you together here, then hey, our pleasure. So name it after Torsten's mission or so, or
Torsten 1.
Tor 1. I think it's taken already, but we have questions. Thank you very much, Chris and Mark. So Chris asks, so how disruptive can space weather events be for surface infrastructure such as railways, signaling, train control systems, or system railway infrastructure depend on how to mitigate such risk?
That's difficult for me to say. So as I said, we started with the ionosphere research, and now we increase our portfolio and topic on that. So I do not get data from that. But I think what is important to learn more about the extreme events, and from the point of statistics, you really need an extreme event. It will not happen to.
So how much time would you need to give insufficient answer? So 2 years, something like that? 3 years, maybe Because we make another session and we keep
Wow.
the questions. So.
If you have a Carrington event, then it's easy
Okay.
afterwards. but
we are
not to
up.
know.
You said 24 is the, or 25 is the.
Yeah, but from the maybe I should say something to statistic.
Yeah.
Okay, we have one solar cycle is 11 years.
Yeah.
And we have moderate, severe, and extreme events.
Okay.
So we have per solar cycle 11 years, we have 10 to 100 moderate events, which you will not see in the news. That's just for industry.
Yeah.
Then you have 1 or 2 severe events, which then you have Halloween storm in the news. For instance, 2003 was a strong event. And we only have 1 event in 400 years, the Carrington event. So one single point for scientists is always bad. So you don't really can say how often this happens, but it will happen maybe after every 200, 300 years.
Okay.
And you should be prepared.
I do not promise that we will have a Space Café in 200 to 300 years, so I'm not doing that here. So, and a question from Mark on the same room: do we need analog backups for our baseline infrastructure and in the space objects themselves? Okay. I think analog backups it's always good. I mean, we as Germans learned it in the pandemic very hard. What you need? Right, it's toilet paper. But anything else?
I'm not sure if this is. You need a backup, of course. In the satellites, you have more.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know.
We are depending, obviously, on the digital or on the electronic infrastructure, and I mean, sure, there's always a backup. You can write a letter, but
yeah, you can have more than one computer.
Well, there are redundant systems in the satellite. At least there are redundant systems, so that's happening. But it can, I don't know, if all of the whole satellite, the entire satellite system is roasted, then it's a little bit problematic.
That's when you said earlier. I mean, you can have 2 astronauts, but I mean. You roast them both. Yeah. I mean, one has a shield. No, that's not what we want to go. Great. Guys, I think we are done checking with our tech team. Yes, we are still on time. And I have to see where's my text here again. Because we can tell you, so first of all, I would like to thank both of you for your time and the courage to do the session with me here online, not online, in reality, so in 3D, yeah. So
and live.
And live, yeah. So the world is listening. Our next events, I hope the slide is up, will be next week. You will see us in the new space conference in Munich, the new one. And then the week after, our team goes to Glock, to Norway, to Oslo, to the conference to report from there. And then on the 30th of May, and you see that on the slide, we have the next space arbitration regionally, and this time it is Asia. On the 31st, Emma is doing her next Space Café Black Ops with Dr. Namrata Goswami. And then followed by a day later, the next Space Law Breakfast by Stephen Freeland, and then Canada, Brazil. We prepare for you here from Berlin in 4 weeks now. The next Space Café live in reality from the DLR studio at the Gendarmenmarkt, and my guest will be Mike Byers. And we will talk about his new book. So mark the date, it's the 13th of June. And then few days later, on the 16th, Sabine Pongruber will do her next Space Café Austria with the wonderful Margit Mischkulnik from the BMWK in Vienna. I know it's a lot of stuff on our events, so best is to subscribe to our events on Eventbrite. As always, we would like to hear your feedback, so please check in with us on Twitter, on LinkedIn, or Facebook, or we will drop Facebook in the foreseeable future. Don't forget to sign up to our daily or bi-weekly newsletters. And if you want to support us more on events like that, go treat yourself with something special, become a Space Watcher today, or help us in our supporter program. Thank you very much, Jens and Enrico, for this very insightful talk and for this lesson for me and for being our guests, and thanks again to this entire team today, really physically behind the scene, for doing their great job week by week. Again, thank you all. Thank you, dear audience, for joining us. I hope to see you in the next events. In the meantime, visit our website, or follow us and social media. And don't forget, become a space watcher. With that, Space Watch out.